mentioned that we are working with NYSERDA on this. We're very excited to be collaborating in this effort to replicate the adaptive reuse process and to help educate others on resilient, energy efficient building strategies. If this building looks familiar to you, it's because I spent just a couple minutes introducing it a couple weeks ago when Kevin and Aaron did their presentation on air sealing and masonry, parging and that kind of thing, which took place at this building. So it's all, again, all part of the effort to help educate and just participate in, trials and tribulations as we go along throughout the construction process. So this building was a firehouse built in the 1880s and has a lot of history that we're very excited to preserve. There's a lot of cool stuff that is left in the building that I will get to in a minute, but it's located in the Manhattan's Kips Bay area and was purchased by converted into a church in 1974, and they sort of used the first floor and didn't quite take care of it as well as they could have, and the top floors especially fell into disrepair, and our clients purchased it in 2018. And we're really excited to be working with our clients on this. We're just thrilled to have a client that's so highly committed to making an impact on reducing carbon emissions, and they're also proud to own a piece of New York City's history. And they, the effort to celebrate the connection to the building's past is really comes from them, and also that we share that enthusiasm. So we really appreciate their commitment to that. So I'm going to give an overview of the project and then focus on a couple elements. Basically, we're going to focus today on the sort of passive house process and some of the details and the challenges of a masonry retrofit. And then we'll talk at the end about some of the restored elements and things that we're saving in this building, which you can kind of see a glimpse of here. I'll get to that at the end, but it's a lot of fun stuff. But it's just so much a part of this building's fabric that we really want to kind of spend some time on it. And there'll be a lot to talk about with this building, but we'll do other presentations in the future, and we'll focus on other, we can really zero in on things in the future, but those are our first two focuses today. So just to give you kind of a quick overview, we already saw the front elevations. This is the back elevation and the side. You can see here that actually quite a bit of our side walls are exposed. So even though it is a masonry row house, technically, it actually has a lot of exposed walls that we're dealing with. And then I'm just gonna breeze through these unit diagrams. So it sort of shows you the complexity of each unit. So there's 4 apartments with a community facility on the main floor. So just hopping back to this diagram here, you can see each color represents a different unit. The red is the community facility, which we're hoping to use throughout construction, and then maybe even after construction as like a training facility, or maybe partnered with NYSERDA or something along those lines. And then each apartment kind of is nestled into this building. We have really great ceiling heights that we're taking advantage of with sort of mezzanines on the 2nd floor, and we're removing the roof and adding a 4th floor, adding a 5th floor, and then adding a new roof bulkhead. So that kind of gives you the overall picture of the envelope. It was a very complex calculation to try and figure out how we could maximize the square footage and the envelope, but also save the authenticity of the firehouse identity, and to keep the facade sort of intact in the way it is. It's not a landmark building, but we're treating it like it's landmarked. even on the back facade, we're treating it, we're doing all the right, or not right, but the moves that we would make on a landmark building. We work with landmarks a lot, so we have a good relationship with them. We kind of know what they look for. And so we are, trying to keep that historic fabric of the Firehouse feel as we go through. So just again, breezing through these units. This is a rendering of what the third floor unit, the unit 3, will look like. We're opening up the arches that were bricked over on the front facade, and reusing some elements here, which again I'll get into later. And then there's this is kind of a cool sketch just showing the unit 4 owner's unit complex, which will have a private stair to a private roof deck on the north side, and this rendering here shows the public roof deck on the south side of the bulkhead. So to talk a little bit about the Passive House, sort of overall amenities, mechanical units, that kind of thing, just talking about the facade, we're exterior shades on the south side. We will have interior shades on the north side where it matters a little bit less. We are going to incorporate solar. This is something that's totally in process still and is not kind of figured out where all the solar panels are going, but it's a work in progress. We have Fujitsu condensers on the roof with air handlers, mostly wall-mounted air handlers throughout the apartments, so that each apartment is controlled separately, and some of it will be ducted, but mostly these wall-mounted units, just to make it kind of simple, and so that the tenants can turn the units on and off easily. And then for hot water, the domestic hot water system is a stand-in heat pump hot water technology. We're working with Building Type, our Passive House consultant, and we work with them very early in the process. And one thing that we learned very quickly is that if we were to go with any other hot water system, we would be over our Passive House energy use. So it was really, the hot water was the biggest challenge in terms of energy usage, and the heat pump stand-in units were the answer. It got us to where we needed to be. In terms of the ERV, the fresh air system, we've got a Zender unit for the community facility that's dedicated to that unit, because we have to separate the fresh air between the community use and the residential use. So for the residential use, we have a Ventacity centralized unit for all 4 units that will supply and distribute to the apartments. And then bike rack in the cellar, with obviously recycling and compost in the designated area in the cellar as well. So to get into the Passive House details and our process, as I mentioned, we're working with Building Type, our Passive House consultant, on this. And Kevin Brennan, who I mentioned earlier, is also working with us. He's doing the air sealing on this project. We actually had a team meeting this morning, working through those details. And to give a little shout out, we started, our first Passive House consultant was actually Sam McAfee, who did this diagram here on the left, which was showing how to air seal a vestibule, which was for one of our historic townhouse renovations in Brooklyn. So basically what I want to say about these details is that these are all sort of our standards now that we've developed over the years. We have our window detail here that just shows basically, let me zoom in, just that we need the plywood block, the plywood box where we're connecting our air sealing membrane to our service cavity, even incorporating a shade pocket, working the insulation in all the way as close to the exterior as we can to really mitigate that thermal bridge, and connect the insulation at the sill to the wall. All of these things are important to the extent that we can, while also getting the window in and structurally connected. But these are things that we've been working on over the years, and we have a standard file now that we can basically source and incorporate into our detail set, but inevitably it doesn't necessarily fit. There's always something that is different, and a masonry retrofit just always has its own unique conditions and challenges. So to get into just an example, these are 2 sheets from our current set right now with all the different wall types and roof details. So this is the quote standard wall details. Of course, there's variations in different areas, but it's just to show that we have a lot of different conditions that we're dealing with. So we have the subgrade existing brick wall with that exposed with insulation, in some areas without insulation. Then we have our above grade brick wall, exposed brick wall, and our non-exposed brick wall. At the back of the rear wall, we're actually able to add the insulation on the exterior, which is just a bonus for our energy model. But of course, we don't want to do that on the front of the building. We really obviously want to keep the historic facade intact. Then we have our new masonry details as we're building up the addition, and then we have even a framed new detail for the bulkhead. So just a lot of different conditions and things that we are contending with along the way. So to get into what I just was saying about the new masonry detail, so we're building up, this is basically showing a section, a transverse section through the building. We've got the neighbor on one side, 219, that's taller. Then we have 225 on the other side that's shorter, and just a lot of different challenges and conditions. That how do we deal with how we're meeting these buildings. And we actually, one unique thing about this project that we often don't see with our Brooklyn projects is that we have our own masonry walls here next to the neighboring walls, and with that we actually have a gap between the 2 buildings. And actually, even to complicate it further, on between 225, we have an air shaft, which our elevation from earlier in the presentation showed that we actually have a lot of exposed sidewall. So on the 219 side, we can actually seal it up, make that connection, basically treat this wall as a shared wall, basically as a party wall in the energy model. But on the 225 side, we really can't do that. We have to treat this wall as a fully insulated exterior wall. So this is just showing, obviously here is our grade beam where we're connecting the new masonry CMU wall to the existing brick wall, and how we're air sealing and bringing that up and around on the interior of the building. And even just today during our meeting that I mentioned, we were talking about all these products, like what system are we really using? Here I have noted that we're waterproofing with Stowe, but Kevin actually recommended that we should use a 3M product. So these things are constantly evolving and changing through the process, and we rely heavily on that input, and we take that to heart. So we can dive into these. If people have more questions in the after hour, we can always go back to these details and look at things more specifically. Just in the essence of time, I want to keep moving. So this is a fun page. I really like this a lot because Ed May from Building Type actually created these after we finally received our complete set of structural drawings, and we said, okay, as a team, we really need to look at the thermal bridge details and what can we do to mitigate those thermal bridges. So in order to be able to talk about them, together. And this was right when, over the summer, when the shutdown happened and we were all remote. So Ed kind of threw these SketchUp models together, and we were able to look at them on Zoom and move these beams around and figure out, okay, actually this beam, these two beams are next to each other originally, but if we drop this beam down and add insulation here and separate these into two different beams with insulation between them, it mitigates that thermal bridge. So again, this is not how the structural engineer had it detailed, but we sent these to him and said, look, this is what we really need to do in order to mitigate that thermal bridge. So it just is so helpful to be working with the building, with the Passive House consultant early on before we start construction, and while we still have time to connect with the consultants and say, bring these issues to their attention and say, what can we do? And because otherwise it just takes time. The engineer needs a few weeks to look at it and revise it and all of that. So to the extent that you can take advantage, and we certainly had time over the shutdown, so we tried to take advantage of that to the best that we could. And this is just our sort of like summary of what Baxt Ingui's systematic approach includes, which is kind of what I was just talking about, involving the Passive House consultant before or during schematic design, and starting the certification process with the certification body early to get their feedback as soon as possible, and selecting the contractor as early as possible, getting their team certified if they're not already, and holding weekly meetings using that blower door as a test, which we will later on in our process, and then openly sharing that knowledge and feedback. So this is to show kind of the story of all the very cool things about this building, and also to kind of give some updates of where we are currently in the process. We are working with R. Sutton, the contractor on this project, and we're very excited to be finally in motion. It took a while to get this project going. So we have very cool cast iron facade details that we're obviously saving. The engine 16 sign is unfortunately not still on the front of the facade behind that awning. They changed it to the church sign, but we're thinking about how we want to do that, and maybe do something creative with the letters. And then this is the inside of the facade. We actually uncovered these really cool transoms here that we couldn't see because the awning was covering it. We probably can't use this for our exterior envelope, but we want to take those down and probably use them on the interior somewhere. And this is what the church looked like when we first measured it. And then this is what it looks like now, where we're cutting open part of that first floor slab. This was where the fire trucks were parked. This is their garage, and before that, where the horses were. And you can just get a glimpse of where we are in the process. Another very cool thing about this that you can see in this photo is, so here you can see the tin ceiling, the original tin ceiling, which is very unique. You can't find it anymore. It has a pattern that is just not even available. When they took the tin ceiling down, they found this very thick wood underlayment, which we are salvaging and reusing. We didn't have any idea that it was there until R. Sutton got involved and started salvaging the materials. So going through in the first floor, so this is what it looked like when you first walked in, and it was all kind of covered up, had this, probably for egress, like enclosed fire passage upstairs, and it looked like a stair that wasn't very unique. And then when you went through the stairway, we could see that there was this very cool original cast iron railing all in one piece. So from the very beginning, we knew we wanted to use this railing and the stair as like a feature as part of the lobby when you walk in. What we didn't know was that the stair that the original stair that turned down was still there. So you can see that here. We're going to see if we can work that into the design as well. Progress photos in the cellar. This is during a team meeting as well, and my colleague Joey there, he's a big part of this process as well, and Luke and Tim from our Sutton. So I just had to get them in. But this is just to show kind of the opening where the elevator shaft will go. And getting back to some of the fun elements, this was the 3rd floor railing and just, you know, very cool doors, these interior windows. We're saving all of this and working it into the design. Another very cool thing, the subfloor is a really great thick flooring. It was covered in some areas by old flooring, and then in this area was painted over, carpeted over. And so, you know, from the very beginning, our client was like, we have to use this. We have to figure out how we can use this. And we were worried at first about the condition. There were some leaks on the 3rd floor. You can see here, there were leaks here. We're not sure if we could save it. But once we got the contractor on board, it was like, you know, we were able to get somebody in, take a look at it, and be a part of the process to figure out how we're going to use it. So this picture actually shows that we just had it sanded last week, even, or 2 weeks ago, to see what the condition was like after it was sanded, really take a look at the boards, figure out how we could take it apart carefully and reuse it. So it's just one of those challenges, though, that you have to think about ahead of time, because it's a process to figure out, well, how much do we have? How much can we use? So our plan right now is to reuse this flooring in the lower the 2nd floor apartments, 2A and 2B. And any new flooring that we'll use will be new but reclaimed flooring that we purchased through a reclaimed source. So that it'll have the same kind of character, but we're just not sure if we're going to be able to use what we have, or we're not sure if we're going to have enough. This photo is kind of cool, the yellow wall here. This we couldn't even see when we measured. We took down a sheetrock wall that enclosed the bathroom, and here this totally crazy yellow wall with these doors had been closed in. So that was just a fun discovery. And again, we're going to try to use these elements. And this is a close-up of the fire coat hooks that were in the garage. Another just really amazing element that was part of the Firehouse history, they would, back when the hoses were canvas, they would hang the hoses from the very top bulkhead on the roof. And this shaft continued through the 2nd and 3rd floor all the way to the roof. So when we cut into it, we had to figure out, like, okay, what is it? Can we use it? It's incredible, like 2-inch thick, that's just how they built it. It was its own wall because it's that thick. So we're going to carefully, and here you can even see how long the boards are. I think there's a seam here, but we've just got these like really great lengths and really great material. So we're taking the time, I'm going to skip forward and I'll go back to figure out like where is all of this going. One thought is that we're going to use it as a chair rail, and potentially, wall cladding, anywhere where we can use it, we're using it. So I'm going to come back. So this is fire pole openings. They were closed in. There weren't any that were used once it became a church, but they did keep it. And so we are actually salvaging the tin surround, and we're creating remnants of them in the apartments as well, like as features, like whether it's whether it's exactly where it was originally, or if we have to kind of shift it to make it look like it's right where it was, but it's at least a memory that we are saving. And this is the tin ceiling that again, it's very unique. We can't find it anywhere. So it was carefully taken down by our Sutton before they could even start work. And it was great to have their involvement because we couldn't get some of these measurements. The ceiling heights were too tall. So they were able to kind of build this scaffolding inside and take some measurements for us, and having their involvement in that process to figure out, okay, where are we using this? How much do we have? Does it work with our apartment floor plan, with our RCP in the apartment? Can we, if we can't use it all, can we use it as a center fixture? Can we just use this piece? So we're using as much as we can in a number of different ways throughout. And then this is just to show the original skylight. We're recreating the skylight in the unit 4, which you might have seen in the rendering as well. But we're again saving these perimeter pieces and recreating that look of the Firehouse skylight. And then this is showing what it will look like when you walk in the lobby, using that very cool cast iron railing as the central focus and the tin ceiling. This is the entry into the community facility, and then the elevator up to the apartments. And this is a photo from this morning of the team with Kevin, Edmay, Joey, and the R Sutton team. So thank you for that. And I think that kind of wraps up the presentation.